Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to speak to you today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for chatting to us. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible animated film, The Inventor. What can people expect when they watch it?
Well, they can expect a fun, adventurous, sort of also, I guess, which sometimes is a bad word, educational insight into Leonardo da Vinci and his world, his time in France with the King of France, Francois Premier, and Marguerite, his sister, and his exploration of his work and his time inventing and looking to the future.
And I know you've been working in the animation world for a long, long time with Pixar, writing the likes of Ratatouille. But this is kind of a passion project of yours. Maybe just casting your mind back, you can tell us a bit about the genesis of the project, why this figure of Leonardo da Vinci seemed like such fertile ground to sort of tell his story and in this beautiful, beautiful way.
Well, I had a short film I made in 2009. I finished it, and then about Leonardo da Vinci. And I thought, well, here's an interesting character because we think of him as this genius and he could do everything. But he also was a real person and he had to have a boss. He had apprentices who drove him crazy. He failed and he procrastinated and he thought he wouldn't achieve everything he could. So he was very human feelings and things about him that I liked exploring. So I thought to do a feature film about him and to continue to develop him as a character that way to me was very interesting. So that's what kind of inspired me about telling the story. Everybody calls it a passion project, I guess because it took for 12 years to make. But all my projects I've worked on have certain passion to them. So I think I just got, I got started and I couldn't finish. I couldn't, well, I could finish, but I couldn't not keep going, especially when I started to involve other people. So yeah, I mean, it's been a great ride though.
And I mean, how much did you already know about Leonardo da Vinci? I guess like was it, a figure that you learned a lot about in school, and I guess you must have done a lot of research for that short. Was there also a lot of work that had to go into, I guess, expanding it into a feature-length film? What was the kind of research process like, and how did that feed into the storytelling?
When I first, before the short, I mean, I knew about Leonardo da Vinci, I think, as much as anybody does. And then with the short, I was like, it's about him flying. So I thought it's kind of about a man with homemade wings and how they try to fly with these fake, these wings they've made. And I thought, well, Leonardo da Vinci is a guy who thought like that. And that led me into learning about him more and more. And so, yeah, when I embarked on the feature, I cracked open all the books I had and I kept reading more and more about him. I went to Amboise, where he lived in France, and Clos-Lucé, his chateau. Visited that. I did the research. And it was just like the Pixar films I worked on. We would do tons and tons of research when we were developing them. So I just applied the same methodology to this film and read every book I could find, talked to experts about it, and just gathered the information as I went along.
And to what extent were you trying to sort of stay true to, some of those facts? I mean, I know the drawings were taken out of his sketchbooks and things like that. And how much were you kind of letting the creative juices flow and sort of filling in, bits to keep the fictional narrative moving along?
Well, I tried to base everything in the film on some facts, but of course, dramatizing them, and also it's animated, so you're trying to make sure the ideas come across in a way that's caricatured and will fit within the animation medium. There's definitely truth to a lot of the things in there, especially his inventions. Like we have the lion in there, which he supposedly really made a lion that was a mechanical lion. I don't know how well it walked or how robotic it was, but supposedly there's other people who wrote about it, so they believe it really was made. So there's things like that. I mean, it didn't look like the way we made it, but so there's ideas like that. There's a moment with King Henry VIII that is sort of kind of based on truth because he did visit King of France, but 10 years after Leonardo da Vinci was there. And he did like to wrestle and all sorts of things. And he did bring his own castle, which was strange to me. So some prefabricated castle or something. So that's those sort of ideas I love. They make me laugh. I think they're weird sometimes. So I want to put them into the story. And if they work dramatically with the narrative, then they go in, if I can fit them in.
And what an exceptional voice cast that you've managed to put together. I mean, Stephen Fry, Daisy Ridley, Marion Cotillard. Did you sort of have people in mind? What was that process like? And how did you kind of work with them to play these characters?
So with Leonardo, I wanted a voice that wasn't the usual old sage kind of voice, the sort of deep Ian McKellen kind of Gandalf voice or anything like that. I really wanted a lighter, humorous voice, very intelligent voice. And the only person I could think of was Stephen Fry, who had that exact way of speaking. So I watched a bunch of interviews with him, and I was just like, oh yeah, it's Stephen. And he was the person I wanted for Leonardo from the get-go. And when we approached his agents and him, he read the script and he jumped right in. I was really surprised at how easy that one was to get him in a sense, which was great. I mean, it's a testament to him and how much he connected to the material and everything. The other actors, it was a little difficult to get to them because I think we were so small of a project. So we, tried to go through their agents and everything, but it was weirdly the pandemic that allowed us to kind of connect with them because animation was the one kind of industry that kept going. So when everything else shut down, the agents called us back. Now they're like, "Hey, didn't you have an animated film you wanted our actors for?" And we have others too. So it opened up the doors for us, and we were able to land these great actors who were really fabulous and also embrace the material. So Daisy and Matt Berry and Marion eventually. So they were just wonderful to work with. They all jumped in, loved the project. I mean, we had to deal with COVID a bit and the COVID restrictions while recording them, but we managed through it.
As you said about Stephen, I think, he has that gravitas, but also got kind of a playful, humorous way of saying things. And I think that's the great thing about the film as well, is that, obviously kind of in some respects, very earnestly kind of, tracing some of the steps of Leonardo da Vinci's inventions and his life, but, it's not afraid to kind of be playful and humorous. I mean, it's like that, trying to see the Mona Lisa and no one can get to see it. So how important was bringing in a bit of humor? And I guess it's something always in these sorts of animations, something for the kids and something for the adults watching as well.
Right. Well, I like telling stories that way, and I think casting somebody like Steven who can bring that levity and humor to it, and again, but it has an intelligence sound to it, or was certainly important to me because the character really needed to feel like a Leonardo da Vinci the way we would perceive Leonardo da Vinci, but yet again be instilled with that humanity. And that sort of warmth you want from a character. So just it was so easy with Steven because he brings that in spades, it just really does. And so in a way, he was the final piece to the puzzle to make the Leonardo character work that well. And yeah, with humor, it's the best way to I don't know. I just love films with humor. So, it's just entertaining that way. It makes it more entertaining to bring those levels in.
And of course, it is a visual medium coming to the look of the animation. I guess, can you sort of have a total spectrum of choices now when it comes to animation? And obviously gone for this kind of combo of the stop motion and hand drawn. Maybe you can talk us through a little bit, the decisions that you made there and why this was the particular right way you wanted it to look to tell your story.
Well, with when I first developed the story, I knew I wanted to do it in at least drawn animation, but drawn animation, traditional animation was kind of going away. Wasn't seen as like a viable way to make a movie anymore. So I thought at that time a lot of stop motion films were sort of showing up, like Wes Anderson's first film, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Leica Studios started. Aardman, of course, was still going with Wallace and Gromit films. So I was like, well, maybe stop motion, because I always loved stop motion as a kid. And I thought, well, why not combine 2D animation with the stop motion? And because the 2D animation obviously is related to his drawings and Leonardo's drawings. And the stop motion, to me, because it's handcrafted, you have all these artists, craftsmen who work with metals and fabrics and wood and everything, that it felt very Leonardo da Vinci to me. So the two forms felt the most Da Vincian. So it felt right to make the film that way. And then it turns out, as I developed the story more, the stop motion elements in the film are all kind of the real world of the setting of the environments. And then the drawn animation became Leonardo's flights of fancy, his imagination, his way of bringing in other characters into his thoughts and his ideas. And it works very well with those mediums, because drawn animation is very free. Like you can do anything as long as you can draw it. And stop motion has certain restrictions to it, because you have to deal with these puppets in the real world. So you have gravity, you have limitations to how you built the puppets can only do a certain amount of movement. You can't do really extreme things unless you plan for it. So that felt more like the constrained real world that he was living in, and then his drawings could be those that freedom he would have through his imagination.
And I can't even imagine how painstaking the process must be, creating this miniature, beautiful, beautiful world and these handcrafted things for the animation.
It's just animation. Animation just takes forever and is painstaking. Yeah.
Did you have, though, maybe a favorite element, a favorite scene, a favorite moment? And then on the flip side, what was the most challenging aspect along the road to actually creating it?
I probably, as a whole piece, is probably the end of the film, the finale was probably the most difficult. One is we had some like big elements earlier with the lion moment and some other things in the film. I really needed the finale to feel very grand, and so we had to throw all elements into it, like the way the puppets would interact, the amount of puppets in a scene, so all the girls on the stage and the king and Marguerite, all these characters coming together, and also the way the lighting would work, and everything had to work perfectly for the finale to kind of come across. And also, there's a very subtle change in the king at that moment in Francis's character, and that really needed to play perfectly. And stop motion and even animation, to some extent, really subtle moments have a heart. It takes a lot to get them to work. So that all those elements had to come together, and so to me, that it all worked in the end really was amazing. It was just sort of a blessing, so that all these pieces could come together and work so well. And I think the ending really is satisfying, and also the fact, I don't want to give all the ending away, so but just how it all came together, it was very satisfying, and I was a little bit worried we'd totally pull it off. So.
In terms of what people can take away, I mean, I guess, it is kind of thinking about this figure as someone who was so ahead of his time and kind of didn't shy away from letting his imagination run wild, which can be so inspiring, I guess, to both kids and adults. And I think you put in director's note of him, who's some kind of superhero, but he was a real person. So, what do you hope people take away from watching it?
Yeah, I think that what you've mentioned, that sort of idea of Leonardo, what is this person who we really keep coming back to? So there's this legacy with Leonardo da Vinci, and I think the message of the film, ultimate message of the film, is legacy, like what you do during your life and how you touch other people or connect to other people, how you provide them with teaching opportunity. You teach them, pass on your information to them. So what legacy you leave behind for being here? And I think like Leonardo's the perfect kind of vessel for that, because he's left a huge legacy, and we keep like making films about him or writing books, and people are so fascinated by him that he continues to live on in this sense. So I think we all want that for ourselves. And I feel like if you can make a big impact on the world, or a small impact around the people you're connected to, then I think that means you've led a great life. So I think that's the message I would love people to take away, and
Yeah.
to be more curious, I think, and bring out more curiosity in them, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's very touching. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And can you quickly tell us what you're working on next? Have you got another project lined up, or are you going to let this one sink in?
Well, this one for sure should sink in. I've been doing a lot of PR for it, so it's taken up a lot of time. But I made a project prior to this called Philharmonia Fantastique, which is a concert film that plays with a live orchestra. It's an animated piece, kind of like Fantasia. So the group that made that, we are making a new piece. We're going to start working on another piece. So I don't know how long it'll take to find money and all that stuff. But the previous one was 20 minutes long. This next one will probably be twice as long. But go to symphonies and stuff. So that's one project. And then there's some other projects I'm pushing out there. So we'll see.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. I can't wait for everyone to see The Inventor. And of course, best of luck with these next projects as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
So nice
Sarah.
to chat to you. Thanks,
All right.
Jim. Bye.